Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining me today. Are you ready to come on a journey with me? In today's video, I'm going to take you on what feels like an epic journey. We're going to tackle a project that I've been putting off for years. If I'm honest, I've been a bit scared to take on this project because I've always been worried that I might not be able to do it justice. But I feel that now is as good a time as any, and if I'm ever going to do this project, it might as well be now. So let's finish my Gran's tablecloth. Or do I want to just abandon this altogether? It's a dilemma. That is the authentic way to finish this project. First of all, let me tell you all about the backstory to the tablecloth. So the project is an embroidered tablecloth that my Gran was working on in her early 20s. She absolutely adored this design. It's something that really spoke to her. She loved it and treasured it her whole life, but she never finished it. Let's have a look now at the tablecloth and some of the other things that I've got with it. So I've just spread the tablecloth out on my table. It's probably about 1 metre square and it has a circular design on it, and the design is called Come to the Fair. It has a maypole, dancers on it, lady and gentleman going for a walk. It has a little girl with a balloon seller and plenty of motifs that she hasn't stitched. So the man smoking a pipe, a sign, a carriage or coach. And as we turn it round, we've got horse and cart, and then we've got carousel, which I stitched a little bit of back in 2020 when I started my YouTube channel. I got this out and I thought I was going to finish it then, but I realised my stitches didn't look anywhere near as good as hers. So what's really nice is that I have the original threads and I have the original magazine that the design came in, and it has the original transfers, and unfortunately this is how they've been stored. This is how my Gran stored them, just folded up. I guess she thought she didn't need them anymore because they've already been transferred to there. But yes, they've been folded, but I do think that they could probably be used again, so they're not completely destroyed, so that's good. If I can maybe scan them into the computer to save the design. It is a beautiful one. So I'm just going to carefully set those to one side. This one looks quite crumpled, which is a shame. So let's have a look at the magazine that the design came from then and learn a little bit about that. So it came from a magazine called Needlewoman and Needlecraft, and when I looked all the way through I found a date, and it is dated July the 20th 1948. So that's really great that we can date this and know that my Gran, who was born in 1926, so she was 22 when she was making this. Interestingly, on the first page of the magazine inside, there's an announcement to the reader, and when I read this, it really made sense with what my Gran told me about how she tackled this project. So it says, "Dear reader, I am sure that by now your reserves of Clark's embroidery threads and Coates Mercer crochet will have been exhausted, and I am delighted to be able to tell you that limited quantities are again available to the general public." So reading that is really interesting because I remember my Gran saying that she couldn't buy a lot of colours at one time, and I didn't know if that was because she just didn't have enough money to buy them or if they were in short supply. And we can now see that there was a shortage, and it was because of the rationing after the war. So that's really interesting to actually find that evidence. I know she had some bought for her as gifts at times, but yeah, it really does make you think, doesn't it? And it really makes you appreciate what we have access to today. And this is all I have left. I have a bit of a ball of red, and I've got this blue one. I've got the darker shade of blue, and then this leftover yellow. They are the exact colours that she's used, but some of the other colours she's used, like the orange and the sort of pinky purple here, and all of the pinks, we don't have any of those left. But luckily, I don't think there's much of the design to do that she'd already started where you'd notice the colour. The only part that I can see is this part of the carousel, but we've got all of those colours. So for example, she hasn't used a brown anywhere, so I think it will be okay if I pick a brown for the horse, because the other horse hasn't been stitched either, so it's not going to matter too much if it isn't the exact brown that was needed. There is some brown for the strings of the balloons, but again, the skin colours, the skin tones on the arms haven't been stitched anywhere, I don't think. So if I find a suitable skin tone, it's not going to stand out that it doesn't match, because none of the other ones have been done. So to complete this project, I want to keep it as close to the original as possible. So first of all, I'm just going to use the threads that my Gran left with the project. So therefore, I'll be using the exact same threads that are from the 1940s, the perfect colours for the project, and also the ones she started it with. So I love that. There are some colours that I don't have though, and when I've had a look, anchor threads numbers these days are different to those, so they must have changed their number system at some point in the past. So I'm going to email Anchor just to see if they can give me a conversion to the modern day colours. I'm going to look on eBay just to see if I can happen to find the right vintage threads in the right colours. I think that is a bit of a long shot, but you just never know. And then failing all of that, my last idea is to just use threads that my Gran left me. She left me a whole load of embroidery threads in all sorts of colours. Many of them are anchor, so I will reach for those first in as close a colour as I can get, and then as a last resort I'll use the DMC that she left me. But I just want to make sure I'm using as close as possible to what the original would have called for. Today's video has very kindly been sponsored by Skillshare. Now, in preparation for working on my Gran's vintage embroidery, I wanted to do a bit of practice just to warm up my hands and to get myself ready, because I was nervous to take on this project. So I took a class on Skillshare called Painting with Thread by Tablecloth. This is an amazing class, so particularly if you are a beginner to embroidery, you will definitely find this to be a great introduction. But what I love about embroidery is that there are so many different styles of it, and so you can really learn so much even if you do have a bit of experience in embroidery. I love Danielle's style. It's so different to anything that I've ever done before, and the class is really detailed and walks you through everything step by step, from getting the right equipment, setting it up, testing out the basic stitches, and then how to take inspiration photographs and turn them into embroideries. Skillshare is the largest online learning platform with so many different classes on a huge range of subjects, from crochet to knitting to embroidery to watercolour painting and illustration, and so much more. I just know you're going to find so much on Skillshare to really ignite your creativity and learn something new. So if you'd like to find out more, the first 500 people to use the link in the description box or scan the QR code that is on the screen will get 1 month of Skillshare for free. So why not try it today? Thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. I'm so glad that I've got these instructions, because everything that I need to know is in there. All of the colour numbers and all of the stitches for each part of the design is really clearly laid out, so I can just follow that and know I'm doing it correctly. So whilst I'm figuring all of that out, I'm going to start with the carousel because I have the colours for that, and she's already stitched one of the carousels, so I can copy exactly what she's done there, and hopefully that will ease me into the project and give me some confidence for completing the rest of it. So I've just spent a bit of time unpicking what I'd stitched 5 years ago, because I really did want to just start afresh. Now, as I mentioned before, my Gran did stitch this design, just part of it, on the other half of the tablecloth, because the motifs are repeated twice. So I've got this to copy, and I'm going to try and get it exactly how she did it. So I'm using a size 9 embroidery needle and 2 strands, just as my Gran did and as the instructions say, and it's just satin stitch for this. I'm just trying to make my stitches as neat as possible. One thing about the thread is it's really nice and soft, and it hasn't aged badly at all, so that's really nice. And the stitches are lying really nice and flat. I did wonder whether there would be some problems with it due to its age. It really doesn't seem to be anything wrong. So that's all I've got so far. This is going to be a big project. Because of all of the small detail, there's a lot to do. But yeah, made a start at least. So a little update, I have now completed the carousel as far as my Gran went. So this bit is the bit that I've done, and then I'll just move you across and you can see the bit that she's done. So we're at the same point now. So that's the end of my Gran's hand holding. I really looked carefully at what she did. I looked at the direction of her stitches. For example, for the little flags that are hanging down in red, she did 2 straight stitches and then 2 tiny straight stitches inside. So I really looked at that for when I was doing mine to replicate what she did. But there's no more of that now. Everything I'm on my own with the instructions now to carry on. The last thing I want to show you just before I carry on is on her part of the carousel. It's actually called merry-go-round in the instructions. I found her thread. So it was actually the last thing that she stitched, and she finished it there, which feels really emotional finding that just left there. Yeah, so onwards and upwards. So the more I work on this project, the more I realise that I was putting it off for years because I knew my stitches couldn't live up to my Gran's. She was an incredible embroiderer, crocheter, seamstress, knitter, everything to do with a needle, thread, crafts. She was incredible, and my stitches just will never be the same as hers. And this is where I need to remember my own advice that I always tell people: don't worry about your stitches, that's your mark on a project. Embrace it, it's like your handwriting. So when I picked up this project to start it, my idea was I would try and match her stitching to get it complete. But I think I'm having a realisation now that I just cannot match her stitches. My stitches are mine and hers are hers, and they are going to look different. I cannot replicate hers, and I just need to decide now, am I okay with that? Do I want to complete it looking like 2 people have worked on it? Or do I want to just abandon this altogether? It's a dilemma. Oh, I've struggled back and forth on this, and I think I'm going to complete it. I'm just going to try now and let go of the feeling of inadequacy and that my stitches are not good enough, and I'm just going to do my absolute best and have the piece completed. She loved the design, and I think to honour that memory and to have that heirloom stitched by her and me, I am going to complete this. So a little update on the threads then. I contacted Anchor and I heard nothing back from them. It's been a really long time now since I sent that email and I got nothing back. So that was a dead end. I did find a conversion chart that converted the old number system to the new ones. It didn't cover everything. It covered a lot, but not everything. So using that and my best judgment, I have purchased some threads new. Now, there really is a discrepancy between them. When I compare, for example, this colour, which was called cyclamen, it's a bit more purple than it is in the original tablecloth, and the greens weren't quite right either. None of them were the exact same shade as to what I wanted. It's left me with a bit of a dilemma. However, I did search on eBay and I have a package which I'm very excited to open. I'm going to open it with you now. Let's see what's inside. I kind of know, but I don't know fully. So let's see what we've got here. Oh, a little note. vintage threads, the vintage anchor threads. And by the way, I just want to say the quality of the new anchor threads in comparison to the old ones is completely different. The old ones are much smoother, they don't knot, they have more of a sheen to them, and they're just nicer to work with. The newer ones just don't feel anywhere near as nice. Let's have a look then. Amazing eBay seller. I asked her how quickly could she send this to me, and she sent it on the same day, which is so nice of her. So, wow. Okay, let's have a look here. So this is really exciting. One of the colours that we need, which is the skin tone, says in the instructions, is colour 542, and here we have it. The exact one. I tracked it down on eBay. Wow. I'm so excited to be able to use this in conjunction with the ones that was left behind and the new ones. We have an original colour, so that's really exciting. I probably would have opted for something a bit paler, but this is quite a peachy pink, but it is the called for colour, so yeah, that's really exciting. So I just need to have a look through and see if there are any more in there. This one, again, it looks very similar to the cyclamen colour. The cyclamen colour in the pattern says 586 and this is 584, so it's very close. It's a closer colour than my converted colour, I think. We'll compare them to the tablecloth in just a moment. Wow, this is incredible. So none of the other colours, except for that skin tone, are mentioned in the pattern. However, this one that I mentioned was just 2 digits away from what's mentioned in the pattern. Couldn't be a closer match to the one my Gran used. Look, it really is such a close match. I would say that's the exact same colour. I'm not sure about what you think here on camera, but honestly in person, it's the same one. So I wonder, is this the colour that my Gran had after all, and she didn't have the 586? So I've been in a real dilemma with the colours with this project. My Gran didn't have all of the colours. That's probably why she only stitched half of it anyway. So I only had a few left from her. I tried to track down the colours and I managed to find what looks like 2 through finding them on eBay, which is really exciting. But when I've bought modern colours and tried to get the equivalent, they've not been the same. So it just leaves me in this dilemma. What should I do? And it's difficult because I wanted to keep it as close to the original as possible. But then I looked a bit more closely at what my Gran actually stitched. And she hasn't followed the instructions. She's changed things here and there. She's used different colours. And then it all clicked in my mind. This project came from a time where people couldn't get hold of the exact right colours. There was a shortage, there was rationing. This project was never meant to be followed exactly to the letter. It was impossible back then when my Gran started it, and it's impossible now while I'm finishing it because they're not accessible to me. I can't get hold of them. Therefore, I just need to let go of this notion of trying to keep it as true to the original as possible. I need to use what I have, use my own judgment, and put the colours where I want them to be, like my Gran did too. And that is the authentic way to finish this project. It's all clear to me now. I'm really excited to get going on it. So I just can't believe that I have managed to complete this and finished it all. And it just feels a bit surreal. I mean, it really is the piece that I associate with my Gran. She showed me it a few times through her lifetime. She loved it, she treasured it, and now it's done. Now it's complete. And now we can honour the design for what it is, which is an absolutely beautiful celebration of the fair, of vintage ladies and bonnets, and it's just so lovely. It's a real piece of history for me, real piece of family history, and I feel glad that I did it. I feel glad that I took it on and I pushed myself through that uncomfortable part in the middle where I just felt like what I was doing was never going to live up to her work, and I'm glad that I did it. So if you've got a project like this at home, something a family member has half made, and you're wondering about whether to complete it, my advice would be to go for it, because I think that person would be really glad that it is being honoured and treasured and carried forward in the family. At least that's the way I think about mine now, and this tablecloth that my Gran made and that I made now as well. Really important piece. Thank you for sharing this journey with me and for being here along the way as I struggled with it. It wasn't easy. I think this is probably the hardest project I've ever tackled, certainly the most emotional, and I really feel like I've achieved something by completing it, and I hope you enjoyed the journey. I'll see you again with something else really soon. Take care. Bye bye.